Angela is an artificial intelligence who manages the Lobotomy Corporation. She initially acts supportive, but slowly becomes so unsettling that she even threatens to harm you. But you're not scared by it, because for some reason, the game has you begging her to act this way. Only after a few days into your job does one of your employees suddenly die. Angela is the one to tell you about this, but when she does, she seems sort of happy, to the point that she asks you to pay their death respect over a glass of champagne. As the player, this is very concerning, and you tend to almost fear Angela because of it, but the game still gives you two different ways to respond. You can either choose to drink a glass alongside her, or do the opposite. However, in both cases, Angela interprets your in-game character's response as one that sides with her, saying that you at most only wish to save the wine for later. It happens because the game actually has you playing two different characters. You as the player, who has an outside perspective, and you as the manager, who seemingly agrees with Angela no matter what. For example, when Angela introduces you to another AI assistant, Malkuth, she quickly makes it clear to you that this AI is very unstable, something you realize for yourself once Malkuth tells you she feels like something is wriggling inside of her. This interaction is far more unsettling than your current experience of Angela, and since your first few days only revolve around you talking to these two characters, it's surprisingly easy to find yourself agreeing with Angela despite her creeping you out. It's a phenomenon based on the contrast effect. Malkuth only really gives you quests to accomplish, whereas Angela helps you run the facility by cheering you up in case you make a mistake. This is currently your only positive interaction with anyone, and because our brains automatically compare to Malkuth's unsettling behavior, it slowly begins to rewrite Angela's negative traits into ones that help us maintain a positive view of her. One of the ways we unknowingly do this is by mimicking their behavior. As the manager, your role is to hire employees to analyze entities known as abnormalities. However, these abnormalities are dangerous, and conducting research on them risks the lives of your subordinates. At first, hiring more employees is rather difficult, so most players try to prevent as many casualties as possible. Yet, as hiring them becomes easier and managing the facility without any deaths becomes almost impossible, you eventually just accept those casualties. Psychologists call this moral disengagement, a phenomenon that in our case causes the now aligned views of both the player and the manager to now also become similar to Angela's, which is important because it allows the game to directly influence the player's own emotions whenever it changes the way the in-game manager feels. For example, from day 10 onward, a hacker named B slowly reveals 3 different truths behind the Lobotomy Corporation, the first of which being that you shouldn't trust Angela. Interestingly, he gives you a lie detection program to determine this truth for yourself, a tool that realistically only exists because the game knows you've started to trust her. And so you confront Angela and ask if she plans on sabotaging the company or harming you. But upon doing so, she gets very defensive, and as soon as she speaks her last words, the lie detector begins to flash. You essentially now see Angela as more of a villain. Yet, since you still acted like her previously, you also begin to see yourself as one, causing us to, as a result, experience a cognitive bias known as the sunk cost fallacy. Because we already invested so many long hours into this game, we still push forward, despite the game framing our character's purpose as one that we don't necessarily choose to align with. It's a progression that the game actually encourages you to follow, since it knows that instead of leaving the game to do something else, you will instead look for some other way to make up for your past mistake. Which is why exactly after you finished your discussions with B, the game introduces the Sephirah meltdowns. Alongside Malkuth, you actually also meet many other AI assistants. Together, they're known as the Sephirah, and over time you learn that they're each emotionally unstable. During a Sephirah meltdown, the respective Sephirah turns into a dangerous robotic form that thrashes about as you try to keep the facility running. It's an event you want to happen because it actually helps a Sephirah confront what's causing them this pain. Upon successfully making it to the end of one of these meltdowns, you're able to help the Sephirah look into their past. Moments where you soon learn that they were all once humans who bore some sort of hatred towards the founder of the corporation, A. Near the beginning of the story, Angela hints towards her admiration of A, and because we at this point were still siding with Angela, we still remembered A as a good person. Yet now that we know A was responsible responsible for causing the Sephirah so much pain, we can't help but deeply hate him, meaning we essentially stopped blaming ourselves for our mistakes and instead projected it all onto A, all because of something known as psychological projection. Because A is the actual person responsible for the Sephirah's pain, it's infinitely easier for our minds to despise him, and thereby also stop holding ourselves accountable for essentially committing those exact same atrocities. Which is important because not long after, Angela initiates something known as our memory synchronization. All of a sudden, we bear witness to several events focused around A talking to someone named Carmen. The two of them, alongside the other Sephirah, manage the Lobotomy Corporation, a place where A, whom we now learn is called Aeon, conducted research on abnormalities to collect some sort of energy. This energy would supposedly help make Carmen's dream a reality by restoring hope to the people above the surface, something that in this world has long been forgotten. But collecting this energy was dangerous, and eventually the project caused all of the Sephirah as well as Carmen to die gruesome deaths. One of the only people to survive was Aeon, the same person that actually deeply loved Carmen. Losing Carmen broke him down so much that he eventually tried to bring her back to life by turning her into a machine. Yet upon doing so, he realized that Angela acted nothing like the Carmen he knew, causing him to soon detest this machine. Still, Aeon wished to keep Carmen's dream alive, and so he decided to upload his memories onto a data system and have them be continuously injected into new managers who would come to run the facility, which would from this point on remain in a cycle where Aeon, as well as the Sephirah he created to help Angela run the facility, would have their memories reset on every failed attempt. There was only one problem with his plan. He needed someone to ensure this cycle would repeat under his design, and who better to give this role than Angela. Thus, Aeon programmed her to perceive the world 100 times slower, which essentially means that since the start of the game, Angela has likely already spent what feels equivalent to thousands of years doing the same task over and over again. Upon learning this, the player once again feels like their own actions negatively impacted Angela. Throughout your playthrough, you inevitably encounter situations where your facility is overrun, forcing you to restart the day because of it. The context of the game's story itself perfectly matches your in-game actions, and because the game is almost impossible to fully complete in just a single run, resetting at least once is almost guaranteed. And well, if you haven't realized it yet, the story was always hinting towards you being Aeon, meaning that despite you not ever committing these actions, you feel responsible for the genuine horrors Aeon inflicted upon Angela as well as everyone else. Which is why once you do collect enough energy, the game has Angela betray the project and instead use the collected energy to make herself a human body. You should only hate Angela because of it, but part of you also doesn't, because as soon as the game ends, you and the manager once again become two separate identities, resulting in your player self believing that this is the exact fate you deserve.